Welcome to the Dr. Ini Adesina podcast. I have various US and international accounting and tax designations, a master's in tax, and a PhD in business administration with a concentration in finance and accounting. Welcome to the Dr. Over the past 2 decades, I have helped several SMEs succeed. This podcast will provide strategies and resources to help startups and existing businesses thrive. Let's get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode. It's been really a busy week. So this week I moved. So, the background has changed and just trying to get settled in. So a bit different today. I'm very excited and happy that we could actually move. And so I'm just in time, of course, for Thanksgiving. And that was a good one. Just to, first of all, thank everybody again for just the support. I've gotten positive feedback and calls, and I know you guys are watching. Of course, don't forget to subscribe. I know you're watching, but make sure you subscribe. So it's going to be another interesting topic, or I'm going to discuss something very interesting again today. Because of the move, I did not finalize with my guests. So next week, back to the guests, but still another interesting and exciting topic. We're already in the holiday season. And of course, here in the US, this is the month of Thanksgiving, and awesome, fantastic. Of course, it's always good to always be thankful. All right. So today I'm going to discuss something that a lot of small business owners take for granted. But when they get this situation, or they get a situation like this, they get, oh my goodness, if only I knew. So today I'm going to spend some time to talk about, how do you prevent fraud? How do you prevent fraud? Sometimes fraud is actually going on right under your nose, but you don't know that as a small business owner. And so I'm just going to give you some highlights of, okay, what is it that you need to do to make sure that, we say that you cannot, should I say, eliminate 100% fraud? I would say that, but at least to the barest minimum, try to, it's good to eliminate if possible, but at least to the barest minimum, to remove fraud or prevent fraud. There's some, people that have small businesses. Some people are actually afraid to travel, afraid to leave that business and take a vacation because, oh my goodness, there's going to be fraud. But there's some specific structures you can put in place to make sure that even when you travel, your heart or your mind is settled. Because even if, you would know if somebody actually committed that fraud. You would know because of some structures you put in place. Okay. The very, very first step is, I've talked about hiring staff, and I'm not going to stop. But hiring staff is just not like hiring staff. You have to hire the right staff. So many small businesses take it for granted, and they don't do background checks. They don't do background checks. They just take it for granted. The person does well in an interview. Very good. But you have to know who you're working with. Who is this person? I know that people in the medical field, they are required because of HIPAA and all kinds of regulations, and some security field, they are required. But usually in your small business, you dictate everything. You decide, okay, is it going to be this or that? You decide. You decide on how you're going to set up that your structure. Unless some small businesses actually are contractors for some organizations or some companies that say, you know what, before you bring anybody into my company to work for me, you need to do a background check, or they set down some criteria. But if you're not that kind of business, right, you dictate if you're going to actually have this background check or not. You dictate on who you want to hire. You're the one that decides. You're the one that puts the modalities in place. Now, I want to really, really stress here, no matter how small your business is, if you're hiring somebody, it's very important to make sure you do a background check. It's not only, the person, as I said, did well in the interview. Make sure you're hiring someone that did very, very well in background check also. You know what? Very well. When I say very well, pass the background check. All right. Check, because some people, even their their certificate, their document they bring. Some of them they're not authentic. So you must make sure, it might be an extra cost, but very important for you to do a background check, because at the end of the day, you don't want to hire someone that is stealing or that stole. I mean, I mentioned it just in case you haven't listened to all my live podcasts, or all my podcasts, all my shows, all my videos. I want to just give you a scenario. There's one of my clients, right? She really needed someone to be on the admin desk. And so she was she got this person, interviewed the person, and the person was so fantastic, right? And then she hired the person. And then, unfortunately, she did a background check after the fact, right? And you know what happened? The person actually stole from my employer. That's why she was let go. So let's never be too desperate to hire people to work in our company. You wait a few extra days. It might be stressful here and there, but still make sure that you do that background check. First, that's the first step. Well, we're talking about preventing fraud, right? If you're bringing in someone that has stolen before, I mean, come on. I mean, how would you prevent fraud from someone that has the experience of stealing, right? I call it experience because, the background check would have showed that, right? And have references and things like that. So that's the first step. Make sure you're hiring the right staff. Make sure you know who you're hiring. It's not only someone that's excellent in the interview. Make sure you know who you're hiring. The next step, the next way that, the list is not exhaustive, but I'm going to give you a few, right, steps, a few things that you need to do. The next step is to make sure that you have segregation of duties. Now, that is so hard when it comes to a small business because you don't have many staff, right? Usually in large businesses, they have someone that does different duties. Somebody might be picking up the check, another person might, opening the envelopes, and then another person putting it in the bank, another person reconciling. It's just to separate the duties, because you don't want someone can pick up a check and pocket the check, right? Or, it's people, there's so many ways that people can commit fraud. And I know that sometimes, because it's a small business, one person does so many things, right? Picking up the check, mailing, putting in the bank, doing the bank reconciliation. Well, if you don't have many staff that you don't have a lot of staff, then you have to step in as the business owner to step in to do a couple of things, right? For example, you might want to make sure your bank statement comes to you. The bank statement is delivered to you, right? So when you see the bank statement, you can actually check. And when you get a bank statement, open the bank statement, just say, don't just put it in, I'm giving it to my bookkeeper tomorrow, right? Open the bank statement and see, because some bank statements actually come with checks, like check stubs, right? And copies of the checks. Just glance through the checks, glance through and see, here and there, and see if there's any weird name on any check. Is there any weird name that you don't know of? Because it means that somebody is cutting a check and paying somebody that is not supposed to be paid, right? So you check if there's any weird check, or is there any weird amount that you've not approved, right? This will not take you time. I know we business owners, all of us, I'm also a business owner. So I know that we business owners are busy, but if you step in just a few minutes, I'm not saying you should study the bank statement, but I mean, glance through the bank statement, check the checks, check, if your bank statement doesn't come with copies of checks, trace, look at payments made, right? Payments made. One thing for our firm, I'm the managing partner, and some of our clients, we handle the accounting, and they outsource to my practice, right? So we handle that. And a couple of times I see some weird checks and weird amounts, and I reach out to the client. I say, is this because I mean, I'm familiar with the clients, what the client has been, their general payments. So when I see something off, I reach out and say, is this authentic? This is off a little bit because it's not something you usually pay. And they say, oh yeah, that's fine. I just issued that check for some because of it. I know they would say, I didn't ask, I don't have to ask the reason. I'm just asking if they're aware of the check. There is not like, I'm not auditing them or anything, but I just want to know if the check was issued fraudulently and it's not. So it wasn't in some cases. Yeah. So you need to just open your bank, open your bank statement, right? And then you give it to your bookkeeper to, continue reconciling. But I want you to make sure that that's one of the steps, right? You're checking because you don't have many staff and you can't go through the process of, if this bookkeeper is handling everything. So you step in, if you have more than one staff, you could actually rotate them, right? And say, okay, this one will handle this time, this one will handle this the other time. Just segregate. It's called segregation of duties, right? Now, you might say, what about if there's collusion? What about if people come together to commit fraud, right? Yes, that can happen. I'm not saying it can't happen, but there's some measures you can put in place. Another thing that you can check, if you are someone that, checks, make sure your checks are serially numbered, your checks. That's one of the things, right? And that's why I tell people, if you travel and you don't have to worry, because if you have checks that's an example. There are so many ways. We're not going to, this is just how many minutes do I have? I'm not going to break everything down and teach you about segregation of duties. Remember, when this program is just about knowledge base. I'm not teaching an accounting class. I'm not teaching a tax class. I'm not teaching an auditing class. It's just for knowledge based, for business owners to have some kind of concept or structure in place, because we know that SMEs have limited resources, and the goal, of course, is to make sure SMEs thrive, that they do very, very well. So these are some measures you can put in place. Now, if you have checks that have serial numbers, serial number 1 to, let's say, maybe 50, whatever its serial number, if one is missing, you would know that somebody took that check out. Right? Now, there are some times that checks could be like somebody writes a check and there's an error. That's fine, but make sure that when they write those checks and there's an error, that you should see that check that was written in, the check should be voided, and you should have evidence and say, okay, this check was voided. It's not like they used it to do something else. So because you can skip, there's sometimes you write a check or maybe you type out a check and there's an error. So you want to go to the next one, but make sure that error you see that, yes, that check that there was an error, that check was voided. All right. So again, make sure you're collecting bank statements. Make sure that when you're looking at your bank statement, you look at serial numbers of checks. You look at payments made. Who are these people that you made payments to? You look at the amount, right? The amount, right? Also look at the amount. It's very, very important, right? Okay. And of course, as I said, let it be mailed to you directly. Another way you can check, make sure that you're checking with this fraud and making sure you're preventing fraud is by intermittent checking. Sometimes I know you might say that, okay, audits are expensive, but you might want to here and there get check. Let's an accountant, a CPA, somebody that coming to intermittent, just checking your process and checking. And, the process might not just be a full audit, but it might be making sure your internal controls are in place, right? Making sure. Now, when we're looking at internal controls, when I say internal controls, it's controls that you put in place to make sure that you're controlling that there's no fraud. An example I said of fraud is reduced to barest minimum, right? I mentioned segregation of duties, right? Now, even when it comes to access to information, access to somebody's password, that should not happen, and your company should be able to make sure that the passwords are updated regularly, right? You don't want, because somebody can maybe put that password somewhere, right? And somebody can use that password to commit fraud, right? So you want to make sure that we're in the computer age. We're very happy with technology. We can you can be in the Bahamas or wherever you want to. Where's your favorite vacation spot? Decide that, you want to log in, right? So beauty of technology, but this technology can actually lead to a lot of fraud if it is not controlled. Some people have private, I think VPN. I'm not a techie person, but I have to use, technology, we have to use it, but I'm not a technology IT person at all. But I just know that for internal controls, we must make sure that our data is secured with passwords and making sure that that password that is continuously changed and updated. Because fraud is not only, some people, it's because of negligence that fraud happens. They might just keep something somewhere and then they get to log into somebody's account and then, things happen and, so make sure because remember, when you have clients' information, you don't want it to be out there, right? So you have to also, you don't want somebody to use somebody's, your company to perpetuate fraud and go into people's account because you have access to maybe an accounts receivable, right? You don't want that to happen, okay? Another way is that you make sure that you train your staff, let them, because some people really don't understand what is really meant. What is fraud? They don't, there are some that are core people that they understand what is fraud, but there are some people, and I believe training is very, very important. Train your staff, let them know, okay, this is what is expected of them. This is what they can't do this. Because, I tell people all the time, you tell people, it's like, you mark, maybe you're doing a performance evaluation and you mark the person down. You're marking the person down, okay, because the person did not do what you wanted the person to do. But I always ask, did you tell the person what you wanted the person to do or what you want that person to do? Did you tell them that, okay, this is what is expected of you? That's very, very important. It's not like, you do a performance review or a review, this person is not doing his or her job because, that he or she did not meet your expectation. But my question is that, did you give the person, did you tell the person this is what is expected of that person or from that person, right? So training is so important. Training, and then also not only training, but letting the staff know that there are consequences when there's fraud. What are the consequences? What is it that this person, that if there's fraud, these are the consequences, and you follow through, right? You follow through. You don't tell people that, these are the consequences, and you don't follow through. Tell people these are the consequences, and based on these consequences, if you do this, you're going to have these consequences, and please follow through. Because if you don't follow through, what happens is that anybody can do anything, and anybody can do anything, right? And they don't follow through, right? Because you don't follow through, and so they just, I won't say they don't follow through. They follow through with doing whatever they like because there are no consequences. So educate your staff. Let them know this is what is expected of them. From them, this constitutes fraud, right? This is how you safeguard. Some people carry their computers and go to the coffee shop and work. There is nothing, I'm not saying nobody should go to the coffee shop, but there's some data you have to be very careful and you can't just be sitting and then people are behind you and they can get information. And then, because of your negligence of opening up people's files there, right? It's very, very important. You cannot do that. So it is important for you as a business owner to educate your staff on what is expected of them, what is not expected of them, and follow through if they do something that that is fraudulent. Now, I mentioned, I believe in, I can't remember the podcast. We had a guest that came in and she was explaining to people about staff handbooks. Why the staff handbooks are very, very necessary, right? Because you don't want to just put it in the air and say, this is what the fraud, what is happening. No, it has to be documented, and they have to acknowledge that they have seen this and this is it. They have to acknowledge it and they have to sign, right? Sign and say, this is what they have seen. This is what they that they have accepted, right? Specifics, right? And they have to sign off on that. Okay, so it's very important that it's not just training them, but they have to acknowledge that, okay, they have accepted and these are what is expected from them. So if anything happens that, oh, they did not do this, and then you fire them because of that, and they come, I mean, legally you're fine, just because you want to make sure you protect your company, right? Because a lot of us take it for granted. Oh, this is a small business. This is no. You have to make sure that there are criteria in place, or to make sure that everybody, right? There are these criteria that are in place to make sure that your staff are well informed, and they even acknowledge that, yes, I've heard, I've seen, yes, this is what this is the knowledge base. Remember, we're talking about how do you prevent fraud in your small business, all right, in your SMEs, small and medium-sized enterprise. Now, another way that you can is to prevent fraud is to make sure that people actually take vacation, right? Why is that important? Do you know some people don't take vacation because they're sitting on something that they did? They committed fraud, so they're sitting on that and they're looking for ways to cover up that fraud. When it's time for vacation, insist that they take vacation, right? Insist they take vacation and rotate people. I know some people are specific. If you can't rotate, I know some people are specific in their training. That's fine. If you can't rotate those people, that's fine. But if there are a few people we can rotate, please rotate people. Make sure that you understand what they are. Others are that what that your staff is doing. I mean, you would understand. You're the business owner. Make sure other people really know so that you can actually interchange them. There are some small businesses that are very, very specific. When I say specific, they are very they're technical, right? Maybe it's an engineering business and things like that. That's really different, right? You have to really know that area before you can move the people around. So generally, if you can't move them around like that, let them take vacation, right? Make sure they are taking vacation, right? All right, so a couple of things like that. And then, of course, as I said, another thing that people don't do is shred. That's another shred. Shred. When you finish with documents, shred. You don't want people to start taking documents home and using it for their own benefit, right? And another thing, before we even talk about that shredding, right? Make sure that when you're signing agreements, even from the employee, remember I talked about from the beginning, employees, you're hiring the right employees, make sure all agreements are signed. Make sure non-compete clauses are signed. Make sure, because they might say, oh, it's not fraud. I'm just taking this to also build my own thing, my own business. So you have to make sure, because really if somebody takes information from your business and goes to manipulate it or anywhere or do something funny with it, or change the formula or try to discredit you because of something, and then it comes back to hurt you because of, that's actually, in fact, I won't say it's illegal, because if you don't put the agreement in place, put everything in place, then it's not illegal. But can we look at it as it's fraud? Well, if you take people's documents and use it not for what it's meant to be used for, then that can be seen as fraud. All right. So the goal is to please make sure as much as possible you're really preventing fraud, because I mean, small business owners, they work so hard to get to where they are. And so you don't want somebody just to steal everything that you worked for, take everything that you worked for, and just like that, get away with it. So put some very good structures in place, right? It might be a little extra work for you, as I explained about the bank statement, for you to look through the bank statement, but it's worth it. And what I see is that when staff understand that there are consequences, and when staff know that you are really looking at things, right? Your business, they too, they check themselves, and of course your business thrives, right? Does well. I mean, I know that as time goes on, as your business continues to grow, you might have more professionals, you might have, some people, some strong people in place that might be very specialized people, maybe an accountant or things like that. But still, it's good to put these criteria in place because yes, there are accountants that do commit fraud. There are professionals that do commit fraud, right? So it's not it's not beyond anybody, but you just make sure there are these criteria. The criterion, they're in place as much as possible. Again, the list is not exhaustive, but I just wanted us to make sure that we understand that. All right. Okay, so let's go to our questions. Again, as I said, just move. So the technicality of connecting to the guest of today, I wasn't able to do that because, again, just trying to settle in. Happy for the move. So I'm not saying that I'm happy, but unhappy, but it's just that it was a lot. So that's why I said, you know what, I have to do this today. The Tuesday live program. And so I said, I have to get something out to my viewers today. All right. So let's go to the questions. I know we have a little time left. So let me go to the questions. Okay. So yes, again, you can call and leave leave a voice recording. You can email me your questions. Usually after this podcast or live podcast, I always have a message at the end that people that want to either subscribe, you can subscribe, but anybody that wants to ask a question, anybody that wants to appear on this program, please, go ahead. We've featured professionals and we've also featured people that come in and just said, I want you to deal with an issue I'm going that my business is struggling with. All right. So please feel free. Okay. So the first question is that I have heard of budgeting for personal goals. Do I need to budget for my business? Oh, definitely. You need to budget for your business because, budgeting also helps you plan. And in fact, we talked about fraud. Actually, with budgeting, you can actually decipher if there's a fraud, right, is happening, right? For an example, if you budget, let's say you've seen the trend and you said, okay, going forward, I'm going to budget, let's say a small business, maybe let's use utility. Maybe you have maybe let's say you bake. I love talking about baking during this season. Love trying to hold back with my chocolate and everything, but still I love talking about baking with the chocolates and the great food around this period. So let's say that a baker, maybe because you're a small business, you bake, you use a commercial kitchen, maybe you have, let's say, $2,000 in utilities, just for the purpose of this discussion, $2,000 in utility. I don't know how much bakers use for small businesses, maybe more, but let's just make it 2,000. And then all of a sudden, that's the trend. You've been seeing that during the holiday season. You've seen that around 2,000, 2,000, maybe two, let's put it at 2,000, you have an energy efficient kitchen that you use. So let's say 2,000. Then you all of a sudden you start seeing that, when you compare the budget to how much you're actually spending, you're seeing 5,000, and you said, then you wonder, why is it from 2,000 to 5,000? Now there could be so many explanations, right? It could be that maybe your oven is not doing well, and that maybe now you have more orders. So there could be good explanation. So, but it allows you to dig further, right? How about if it's that you're still having the same orders? Maybe then you should dig it further and see, maybe somebody's actually saying that utilities, but it's not really going to the utility company. The utility might be going to somebody else's pocket. So that's what a budget helps you do. A budget also helps you plan, right? So a plan, okay, now you know how much your expenses are. You can say, okay, make sure that this is how much you must have in your account for the expenses, or this is the revenue you can project. Okay, this is how much revenue I made, right? So this is where I stand now. These are my expenses. So yes, a budget is important even for a small business, all right? Important is not only, I know we talk about personal finances, we talk about all that all the time about, your personal finances, how to budget and, your personal finances. in this case is a bit different, but it still has the same goal, right? Budget, but it's budgeting for your business, right? Okay. So the next question is that I have a full-time job. I also make REITs for the holidays. Yeah. And for the past years, and I have not made profits. My accountant says it's a hobby, so I cannot deduct my expenses. Is that correct? Okay, so kudos for the REITs. I know this is, again, loving this season. And this person actually is, I think this person is just saying that it's a side hustle, right? The REIT is like side hustle. The person has a full-time job, but loves making REITs. Now, I get it. Sometimes you make REITs and you might say, okay, I want to make it for a family member, and you do that. I mean, I know the people that love that creativity, they buy specifics, and I know some of the things they actually use might be very expensive, but it's their passion. They want to do it. And sometimes they sell it, or they just give it, or maybe sell it at a minimal cost or minimal price, not cost, price. Okay, so you're asking, is this your accountant is saying is a hobby? Well, now how the Internal Revenue Service sees that, it says that if you make, I don't know how many years you made the losses, but if you make in a period of 5 years, if you make losses 3 or 5 years, or 2 or 7 years, if it relates to horses, this is REIT, so we're not talking about horses now, but 3 or 5 years really is really not a business. It's really seen as a hobby, right? And so as the Tax Cut and Jobs Act changed the law where you could actually deduct those expenses. It was on Schedule A. You could deduct those. I think from 212 but it was, well, you could. It's Section 212, but I believe you could actually deduct those expenses. You could deduct expenses, right, from hobbies. You could, but unfortunately, it has changed. You can't do that. You can't do that anymore. It's not that it's suspended. I won't say that it's totally eliminated, but right now, so if you have been making losses, right, at least 3 or 5 years, then I will say your accountant is right. Your accountant is right, because it's not really a business. Remember, if it's a business, you can deduct your expenses, you can, but hobbies, right now, you cannot deduct your expenses, right? I'm not going to bore you with the section of the Internal Revenue Code section or anything like that. I know I mentioned some, but just don't worry about that. But just know that that's how it works. So if you're out there and you have something that you do, and when you do, you have something that you do. Now, what I want to let you know is that if you're making losses, continuous losses like that, it becomes a hobby, and really you cannot take it as a trade or business. Okay, I just wanted us to be sure you cannot take that as a trade or business, right? The beauty of being a trade or business is that if the trade or business, you can deduct those expenses, right? But for a hobby, and unfortunately for a hobby, your income is taxed. Yeah, I know. Your income is taxed. So even if you made $500 from the REITs, that money is taxed. Unfortunately, you can't deduct the cost of what you made, right? The material. So yeah, so yeah. So I would say yes, your accountant is right. All right. So let's go to the next one. I think we have a few more minutes, and okay. I just hired a few staff. I've heard of many payroll services. Which one works best? Okay, I'm not here to promote any software, I'm not here to tell you about what works best. I would say go and do your research. Now, I know that, I don't know if your staff are just local, which is within your state. Now, if you have staff, I know that people that have staffing companies that they send staff all over the country. So you did not tell me what company or what is it what kind of entity. Now, you have to really make sure you research very well. If it's a company that can, that is robust, that because you have staff all over the country, then make sure you go with that, right? A company that just local staff, make sure you see what works for you, right? And when you're looking at the cost benefit analysis, I want you to really note that with payroll, you have to make sure you have, if you're going with any payroll company, that's someone that actually knows the payroll, what is required. Yes, the deductions and the remittance. I know someone that I don't know who the person went with, but the taxes were not remitted. So, and this person was of the opinion that the taxes were remitted. And then what happened was that they came after him and he said, oh, no, but the taxes were remitted. There could have been a misunderstanding or things like that. But so make sure you look at the reviews. Make sure you look at what is it that you really want from this payroll software. If yours is going to be complex, because some people already have retirement plans for their staff. Kudos to you guys that are doing that, especially a small business that says, you know what, I want to have a retirement plan for my staff. No matter, you see, there's so many retirement plans. So if you choose, and even anyone you choose, kudos, right? That's a good one. That's a good thing. Now, make sure you have a payroll company that can actually include that, when they're doing, preparing the W-2. So it's very, very important. Okay. So again, I'm not going to advertise any payroll company, any payroll entity today. I'm just going to make sure that I let you guys know that, make sure you do your research. And of course, some CPA firms actually do payroll. We do it. But, if you want to do it on your own, please go ahead. And, but make sure you do your research, and then also make sure that now that you're hiring staff, tax compliance is so important. There's so many changing tax laws. Make sure that you're using a payroll software that is compliant. Make sure that compliance also includes, remitting, like remitting the taxes. Okay, I gave you a real example of someone that did not know that the taxes were not being remitted. Okay, so compliance is very, very important when you're deciding on which payroll company you're going to use. Okay, so I think I have time for a few more. Okay, I make perfume oils. The cost of my materials have increased. Do I increase my price? Oh my goodness. Okay, I think I spoke about that last time, but I'm going to, apparently maybe you didn't listen to my last podcast, but also, okay, I will still respond. Kudos with your perfume oils. Love those oils. Very good. Kudos. Great job. Now, if your materials increase, and I know that's a lot of people that produce things, right? It could be anything. I know that the cost of production now has increased, right? The cost of production has increased because now the materials, of course, we talk about inflation, we talk about the supply chain, right? It has increased, right? Because everything is like a rippling effect. It affects everything, right? And so the cost of that product has increased. Now, your question is that, do you increase your price? I would say, definitely, you should increase your pricing because, if you were buying something, maybe you were selling your product for the purpose of this discussion, you're selling your product for $10 and you were buying something for, before you were buying the materials for $3. Remember then the profit is 10 minus 3, which is $7, right? That would have been the 10 minus 3 is $7, right? Now, maybe now your products are getting to $5, $6, right? So your profit now, if you keep it at 10, you have maybe $4, right? And when people look at because it's not only the product, what about your transport? What about, the travel to go and get those products? So it's more, and of course, it depends on the structure, your labor too, right? You are working your labor, right? Of course, there are some structures that we have, business structures where here in the US, you cannot pay yourself a salary. Some you can. So when you add that, of course you have to increase the price of your product. But the question that I will add a question for you, right? By how much, right? Now, I don't want you to increase it to such a way that people will say, oh my goodness, I'm not going to use your beautiful perfume or okay? First of all, I must stress that please do not reduce your quality. Do not reduce your quality, because some people might say, oh, I want to still keep it at $10. So instead of having high quality things that I used to buy at $3 and now it has increased to $5 or $6, I'm going to go for something cheaper. And because of that, at the end of the day, your clients or your customers get a cheaper product. And less, when I say cheaper, a low quality product. So do not do that. First of all, make sure your quality still stands. Now, when you're marking up, right, that's marking means that increasing the price. I want you, first of all, to do some research and say, okay, this kind of oils, what are they going for out there? Do some research, right? Go and do some research and see, okay, what are they going for? And you might say, okay, I'm going to match that price, or maybe go down by 50 cents, 25 cents, or, depending, or you go up by maybe 25 cents too. But I would say, instead of going up, be at par or go down a little bit, right? Go down. When you establish your markets, I guarantee you, if your customers will still continue to buy, if you go up, even if you go up a little bit, just don't be outrageous. Don't say, I'm not going to go up with the market of $10. I'm going to do 20. Don't do that. Increase your pricing, but do not be outrageous. All right. Do not be outrageous in increasing your pricing, right? So yes, increase your pricing, do a market survey and say, okay, what some similar oils, how much do they go for? Either you match it or you come down a little bit, right? Just a little bit, just because let me tell you why. If you have a product, right, and let's even use $15. You have a product and you sell it for $15, just for the purpose of this, right, this discussion, $15, and you sell maybe, let's make it easy, 10 a week. That's 15 times 10, 150. 150, you make 150, right? And you have a product, right? You decided that, you did a market trend and review, and you see that it's $10. You say, okay, I'll be around that $10. And in that $10, right, you sell 50 a week, because your value, of course, I'm not saying you should go really bad down, but 10, and you sell 50 a week, right? That's $500, right? And so just make sure that it's not so outrageous. Yeah, people might still buy, but make sure it's not outrageous, right? Increase the price, but make sure it's not outrageous. All right. So yeah, I hope I've answered. I think that's all we can take today, or I can take today. Yes, and I'm happy I was able to still come on live. I know it's been a crazy and busy week. I'm trying to settle in, but I'm happy I was able to come on live. I just want to leave a tip as we're in the holiday season. Everybody's celebrating something this season, especially as we get to the end of the year. Of course, I would say, first of all, always be thankful. That's number one. But secondly, as a business owner, please don't just make sure you curtail your budget, right? People try to go haywire when it comes to expending at the end of the year, please, because you don't want to really overspend and struggle in January. Just make sure you check yourself and make sure you're doing that, in when you're looking at the expenses for the end of the year. All right. So thanks again. It's really wonderful being here today. Thanks for all my viewers and those that watch live or those that watch later on. So I will be back next week. And of course, as I said, you can stay on to listen to how you can go on my website and just or send an email to appear on this program. All right. I hope what I've done, I've been able to help somebody to to have that business or make that business thrive. And remember, thriving is an intentional act. You need to do it. You need to make sure that it works, all right? Because you are intentional about it. All right. So bye for now. See you next week. Thanks for having me. Remember to join my live podcast on Tuesdays, 6 to 6:45 p.m. Central Standard Time. Visit my website, driniadesnia.com, for details. Till next time, bye for now.